Hey everyone, it's Misty and I am here with Jess Barrera from Sallie Tomato. Jess, thank you so much for being here again.
Oh, I'm so excited to sew with you today, Misty.
I am so excited too, and we are pretty pumped because this is the Misty bag that Jess has helped me design, and we're going to teach you how to make it. So like I said, I'm so excited. Jess, you kind of asked me what all I wanted in a bag, and you just knocked it out of the park. So do you want to talk a little bit about all the features of this bag?
Yes, I love this bag. I love all the additions that you added onto this pattern. So there's a front slip pocket, there's a luggage handle strap on the back. Yep. So this bag is great for travel, it's great for work and using every day. The straps are adjustable, and this is like one of the greatest parts of the bag because you can carry it over your shoulder, or you can just pull on the side straps and then you can wear it as a backpack.
Yep, I love that.
So when you open it up, there is a large slip pocket for either a tablet or a laptop.
Yep, my laptop fits perfectly in there, which that was one big thing that I wanted. I wanted a laptop bag that wasn't huge, and I think this totally fits the bill there.
Absolutely. And then on the laptop sleeve, there's some additional pockets. There's a zipper pocket, and then a slip pocket too.
Yep. Hold your phone and all those goodies, and then also this zipper pocket. So it's awesome. It holds all the things you could possibly want, and like Jess said, it's perfect for work, travel, or just every day. And so I am so excited.
Awesome, so we're gonna get started, and the first step of the pattern is to cut out all of your pieces, and most of the pieces are rotary cut, so you'll just measure and cut according to the pattern, and then we add on some interfacing. So for this pattern, I recommend a lightweight woven fusible interfacing. So just follow along with the pattern to fuse on the interfacing, and then we're gonna add some foam stabilizer. So that's what's gonna give it the nice body and stability to hold your laptop and all your accessories.
Okay, perfect.
So here we have the side panels of the bag, and I've already went ahead and fused the interfacing on each piece. And then on the wrong side, you'll center a piece of foam.
Okay.
And also on the wrong side, you'll center a piece of foam stabilizer on each of the side panels. And you'll notice that it doesn't reach the top and the bottom, and that's intentional, so that way it reduces some of the bulk later on when we're sewing the bottom and the top of the bag. So you just center these. You can use some sewing clips or basting spray to hold them together, and then I just stitched on each side edge with an 1/8 inch seam allowance to hold them down.
Okay.
So super easy. That's all that we have to do for the foam.
Okay, so those are ready to go.
So then we're going to work on the exterior slip pocket.
Okay.
So here we have one of our center panels, and this is the lining for the slip pocket.
I love this fabric.
Me too.
It's so cute.
Lots of colors, and yet it's still neutral.
Yep.
So you're going to take your center panel and just place it right sides together with your lining. So if you're using a directional fabric, just make sure that each print is facing, so the top edge
would be there.
Is there.
Yeah.
And then you're going to line up those and just sew across here according to the pattern.
Okay.
We can use a couple pins or clips to hold the layers together.
Do you use pins a lot?
I use pins for the lining fabrics,
Okay.
and then once we add the faux leather or cork fabric, then the sewing clips are really nice.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's always a good idea to backstitch.
Yep.
Just helps reinforce everything. So then we're just going to press the seam allowance towards the bottom here.
Okay. Do you press it from the back or the top?
Usually the back.
Really?
Or the top, whichever.
Okay, I feel like I would have to do it this way, and then I'll flip it over. But that's just my brain, I think.
Yeah, either way works.
And so then because you want that bulk to go down towards the print, right?
Yes.
Okay, I see what we're going for here.
Oh, just the seam allowance towards the bottom.
Oh, okay, so not this whole thing. I was getting ahead of myself. So just like that. All right.
Perfect. And then I'm just going to top stitch right here to keep it nice and flat.
Perfect.
And usually when I top stitch, I like to increase the seam allowance. It looks a little bit more professional.
Yep.
And whenever I do top stitching, I like to increase the stitch length And I think it looks a little bit more professional with the longer stitch. So next we're gonna add this invisible bar magnetic snap, which is very strong and durable. So this will be added to our lining piece, and then this will be end up being the pocket piece. So we'll attach it to both of the lining pieces.
Okay.
So we're gonna go ahead and mark the placement for the snap on the wrong side.
Okay. So we'll flip this over.
And you'll measure up from the bottom edge according to the pattern and just mark a small horizontal line.
Okay. Like so, about like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Perfect. So I'm going to open up our snap. And we have the two halves of the snap. We'll want the attracting sides to be facing each other, so we'll want it against the wrong side
of the fabric. Okay.
And then if you want to mark the placement on this piece as well.
In the same way? Okay. Perfect. I'll give you that one. And I'll measure up here. All right, there we go.
Okay, so then the snap is going to go above the placement line in the center, and you could use some washi tape or some basting tape to hold it down. I'm just going to hold it as I sew, and I'm going to sew an 1/8 inch from the magnet and then go back and sew an 1/8 inch from the outer edge of the plastic.
Okay. Yeah, I've never used one of these before, so this is pretty cool.
And they do like to stick to the bed of the sewing machine too. So
oh, that's true.
the machine does guide it with the feed dogs as you sew.
Okay, that's good to know.
It's a very strong magnet, but I love these magnets because once you have them installed, then
They're
in
really
the layers of
gonna
the fabric,
stick. Yeah. Which is what you want. Why go to all this trouble if it's not going to hold, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's one side.
That looks great.
And then we can just double check again that the magnets
match up. Yep.
Okay, we're good.
All right.
And usually I like to start on one of the straight edges and not exactly on a corner.
I noticed you were doing that.
And then when you come all the way around to the starting point, you can back stitch over your beginning stitches, and it just reinforces a little bit better than
and keeps
starting
it cleaner than having it in the corner too. That's
yes.
a great tip.
Another tip too, if you're having trouble with the magnet sticking so much to the needle plate, you can add a scrap of foam just between the magnet and your fabric, just not underneath the foot, and that'll help prevent it from sticking as much.
Slide around.
So then we're going to take our exterior slip pocket piece and place the fabrics right sides together here.
Awesome.
And then I'm going to sew along the top edge. Okay, this time we're going to press the seam open.
Okay. Let's see if I can do it. I don't press my seams open very often. I'm sure I can do it though. All right, so we just kind of open that up. Do you have to worry about that plastic with your iron?
Yes, I wouldn't touch the plastic.
All right, I'll be very careful. I didn't know if it was heat resistant. Okay.
So if you have a scrap of fabric
Yeah.
that you want to lay over top of the plastic just to make sure.
I'm able to avoid it, but
Yeah.
yeah, if you wanted to be extra safe, that makes sense. Get that little end. All right, there we go.
So now we're going to match up the bottom edges and fold the entire slip pocket in half with the wrong sides together,
Okay.
and then just press along the top edge so that seamed edge will be folded onto the wrong side.
And kind of hidden. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, make sure my bottom edge is straight. And then we'll give this a press. There we go. That works.
So now I'm going to top stitch in the ditch of the seam here,
Okay,
and that'll have some really nice top stitching on the outside of the pocket.
perfect.
So now is the time to add a handmade label if
Okay.
we want. So I think we're going to add it.
Let's do it.
And it's going to look really pretty on this front pocket here. We're going to center it up from the bottom edge.
Okay.
And our hardware comes in 5 different colors, so
Yes.
I thought the gold would look really nice with this rifle paper co print
Yes, I agree.
and just pop. So let's
Yeah,
open
I
this
love
up.
that you can find whatever suits you and suits your project. So great.
Very customizable.
Yes.
So the handmade label comes with your hardware and then also a washer.
Okay.
And we're going to mark the placement 2 inches up from the bottom. Just mark a little dot.
Okay. So measure up right in the middle. Just make a little dot like that.
Perfect.
Okay.
And I'm going to set this piece aside for the moment.
Okay.
And we can fold away the lining because we're only going to install it into the main fabric.
Okay.
And then you're going to center the washer above that placement mark.
Up here.
And we're going to take the piece of hardware and just make a note which holes that the prongs will poke through, so it looks like,
In one on each side.
yep. And then you'll just mark each of those holes with your marker.
Okay. Perfect.
And then we're going to take a seam ripper.
Okay.
So I use a seam ripper all the time for installing hardware.
Yeah.
And you're just going to cut a short little slit.
We're gonna poke that sharp end through there and just slide it up just like so. I love this trick. It makes all the difference.
Perfect. So then you can push your hardware through the slits
Okay.
and then flip it to the wrong side and place the washer over the prongs. And then I always bend the prongs away from the center to just help
Help
distribute
hold it
the
in.
bulk.
There we go.
Perfect.
All right, there we go. How cute
Cute.
is that?
And it only took a few seconds.
Yep, a great little detail to add.
Love it. And you could also add some permanent glue to the wrong side, or if you have a scrap of interfacing, you can cut a large scrap and just iron it over the wrong side
Just
help
to give it
protect
some
your
more
fabric.
stability. Yeah. Okay, great.
All right, so now we're ready to attach the pocket. So we can snap the magnet together. And then we're going to line up the side edges and the bottom edges. And I sewed it crooked.
It's okay. We'll just make it slide.
And now we're getting into a little bit of thickness, so we can use some of the clips to help
Okay.
hold the layers together.
And you're going through all of them, right?
Yes,
Okay.
clipping all the layers.
All right, there we go.
Okay, so now I'm just going to sew the sides and the bottom edge.
All right. narrower seam here, or just normal?
Just the normal seam allowance for
Okay.
this step.
Great.
And I like to back stitch at the top edge of each pocket,
Yeah.
side of the pocket.
That's where all
So
that wear
reinforcement.
goes. So.
So now that we have that attached, we're going to add a little bit more stability.
Okay.
So we're going to center our fabric over the foam.
Okay, do you work from the back side or the front side?
So you'll have it right side up, just like that.
Okay.
And again, it'll be shorter on the top and the bottom.
Right, yeah, I can see we've got a little bit hanging over on both edges.
So then we can add some clips
Some
to
more
the
clips.
sides.
Okay,
And now I'm just going to base the edges with
Okay.
the 1/8 inch seam allowance.
perfect.
I'm going to increase the stitch length just to help tack it together. And we only need to do the sides.
Okay. And this is just to make your life easier later on, right? To baste it all together like this.
Yep. So then all the layers just stay together.
Stay where you want them.
So we have our exterior front prepared, so we can set this aside and
Okay.
work on the luggage strap on the back.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so here we have one lining piece for the middle, and then we have our main fabric on the top and bottom.
Okay.
And we're gonna line up the 10-inch edges, so we're gonna sew these to the center panel.
Okay.
And the reason why we're using the lining fabric here is it'll help be less bulky than if we had one continuous piece.
That makes sense. All right, so we're just gonna fold those right sides together and sew them down?
Yes.
Okay. There's one, and here's the next one when you're ready.
Okay, perfect. You can certainly pin this together. I'm comfortable with just lining it up
Yeah.
and sewing. So there's one side, and then we'll attach the top. And then the seam allowance naturally wants to go towards the lining, and that's the direction we're going to press
Okay,
it.
great. Move this ruler out of the way. Roll that over. There we go.
Okay, and then I'm going to further secure that seam allowance with a top stitch.
Perfect.
So this has become our back panel, and that's
right.
prepared. So here are the pieces for the luggage handle sleeve.
Okay.
So we have one lining and one main fabric, and I'm going to line up the 10-inch edges and sew along one edge first.
Perfect.
So then we're going to make a tube by just lining up those opposite raw
Okay.
edges.
Just matching them up.
So it's a little easier to press the seams open at this stage. So
Okay.
go ahead and press those. You can kind of move the seam to the center
Okay. And
if
then-
needed, or
and make
just
it
away
go
from
where
the
we
edges.
want, right?
Yep.
Okay. Let's do that. There's the first one. And come around and do this other one as well. All right, there we go.
Okay, and then you can turn it right side out.
Okay. That I can do. I'm confident. All right, there we go.
Okay, and now we're going to center the lining panel in the middle.
Okay.
And just flatten it down and give it a good press. Just make sure those seam allowances stay open.
Flat and open. Okay. There we go. Don't feel any bulk in the wrong place, so I'll go ahead and press it. There we go.
And we worked together to design this pattern so that way you could use the thicker materials for the exterior fabric, like faux leather or cork or the canvas. So that's why the construction is using the lining to help reduce the bulk as we go.
Which I love, because I think it's fun that you can add those details along the way. And so I appreciate you working with me to make it happen.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. And I'm going to do a little bit of top stitching next right here.
Perfect.
To just secure those seams. So just like before, I'm stitching right in the ditch of the seam allowance.
Okay. It's a great guide to make sure it, you know, is all even and straight on the front side too.
Yes.
So my top stitching has been known to get a little wonky. So the seam as a guide is great.
Yeah, usually I sew a little bit faster on the construction and then slow down for the top stitching.
Exactly. Perfect.
Looks great.
That looks awesome.
So then this gets centered over our back panel.
And put some clips in there.
Yes. So we'll just clip it in place.
There we go. All right.
Perfect. So then I'm going to just stitch it down on each of the side edges. All right, so then just like before, we're going to add our foam, but this time to the back of the bag.
We're just centering it again, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Center it, and we'll clip the side edges.
All right, I've got it.
After a while, it'll feel kind of natural.
Yeah, second nature. There we go.
All right, and then we'll just base the edges again.
Perfect.
So now our back side of the bag is complete, so we can set this aside.
Okay.
And we're going to move on to preparing the straps. So we're going to start with the longest strap. So there are 3 pieces, and we're going to join them together to make one long continuous piece. So we're just going to start with 2 pieces, and we're going to join them just like you would with binding.
Oh, awesome. So on the 45.
Yes. So I like to overlap the ends, and that'll just account for any shifting at all. And I'm going to take a sewing clip, and just clip one edge, and you could certainly mark from corner to corner because we're going to sew a diagonal line. I'm just going to eyeball it.
Yep, and I have that diagonal seam tape on this machine too, which helps.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So just make sure to back stitch at the beginning, and I love that. I'm going to have to set that up for myself.
It's pretty great.
Okay, so then we can just cut the seam allowance to measure 1/4 inch.
Okay. Let me grab my, do you use your rotary cutter or scissors? What is your preference?
Either way, I usually use the rotary cutter and the ruler.
That's the way I like to do it too. There we go. And do I need to do anything with this little bit of bulk here? Should I trim that off?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
I leave that for the time being.
All right.
So I'm just going to finger press it since we're using faux leather. This doesn't hold a crease very well, and you don't want to iron the faux leather because it'll melt.
Right.
And with cork fabric, it's not going to hold the crease well either. So I just finger press, and then I'm going to stitch down the seam allowance on both sides.
Okay.
Just 1/8 of an inch. All right, so now we can trim that seam allowance even with the side edges.
Okay, perfect. There's one. And two.
Perfect.
Okay.
And I love using the faux leather for straps because you don't have to worry about interfacing it, and it's very durable.
Yeah.
So then we would piece the other piece to make the continuous strap in the same way.
Okay.
So once you have that pieced on, then you can fold the strap in half and just line up those raw edges and use some sewing clips to hold the layers together. Usually I just align it as I sew to keep the edges even.
Okay.
And then we'll sew down each of the length sides with an 1/8 inch seam allowance.
Okay.
And for this step, I definitely recommend a Teflon foot and a Microtex needle to sew through the faux leather so that it has that really nice crisp top stitch.
Perfect. With projects like this, it really does make a difference. It makes your whole experience better.
Yes. Yeah, you don't want to be frustrated, you want to have fun.
Exactly.
So I went ahead and finished my strap, and so here's what it looks like all pieced together.
Sewn on both sides.
Yes.
That looks awesome.
So then we'll repeat the same process for the strap connectors on the sides. So there are 2 pieces of fabric, and instead of joining these, we don't have to worry about that. We're just going to fold them in half and top stitch both sides. And here's what they each look like finished.
Awesome.
So we can set our strap connectors aside for the moment.
Okay. Add it to our growing pile.
And then we have these small buckle strap connectors as well. So these ones will be folded in half and top stitched 1/8 inch from each side. And here they are finished.
Okay. We'll add those over here.
So that's it for preparing our straps, and now we'll work on adding them to our side panels and the buckle strap connectors.
Awesome.
So these are the buckle strap connectors, and this will allow us to add that pin buckle on the side to adjust the strap length if we need to.
Yes.
So there are 2 of them, and I've already went ahead and marked the placement. So you'll measure in from each side edge and mark a vertical line, and then in from each of the longer edges and mark a horizontal line, and this will create a box.
Okay.
And to cut out the box, I recommend to use a seam ripper to get started, and then use your scissors to cut it out. If you use your rotary cutter, you just have to be careful that you don't cut past the corners.
I was going to say it's a pretty small area you're working with.
Yes. So here we already cut out our little boxes.
Okay.
And here's our buckles. This is the fun part when we get to add more hardware.
I love it.
And then we're going to need our little buckle straps.
Oh, okay, these little guys.
Perfect. So we're going to take one of our buckle straps and fold it to overlap the ends by about 1/4 inch.
Okay.
And then we've already marked the placement in from one side edge for the buckle strap, and we're just going to place it below the placement line.
Okay.
And I'm just going to hold this down and stitch the little ends in place here.
Okay.
And it might be easier to just sew one side at a time too. So I'm going to open it up and line it up. And I like to have the folded edge of the little strap towards the cutout area, because when we look down on top of the strap, it'll have that finished edge, and this will be towards the bottom. Just a little detail.
Yeah, it's a good tip.
So I just did a few back stitches to hold that down, and then I'll loop it around and just hold it in place and just back stitch it really good.
Okay. And you're just kind of pushing that top part out of the way, right?
Yes. Okay, we can trim up those threads, and I'll attach the other strap. So now we're ready to add the hardware. So you're going to take one buckle and one of your buckle straps and thread it through. So that way the pin is against the wrong side of the fabric.
Okay.
And then we can poke the pin through our opening and thread the strap so it's wrong sides together through the little buckle strap.
Perfect.
And it looks so cute.
Yes, it does. Look at that.
Do you want to do the other one?
Sure, absolutely. So we go this way and our pin this way. And slide that through and through our little holder.
It looks super professional. I love the details.
I love it too.
Great. And then we're going to grab our side panels.
Okay. Here's those.
And we're going to center one strap along the bottom edge of each side panel.
Okay.
And then we can just clip the bottom edge.
All right.
If you want more reinforcement, you can take some double-sided basting tape and just apply some down the center here and help stick it down. I'm just going to hold this one as I sew, and we're going to sew down from the folded edge to make sure that the hardware doesn't wiggle around.
Okay.
And then I'm also going to sew a box down here just to keep the strap in place.
Great.
And I like to start along the top edge, close to this strap here. And then stop about 1/8 of an inch from the edge and pivot. And then we can continue to sew our box. And then we can trim those threads and I'll sew the other connector down.
It's looking so great. Okay.
So the next part of the strap is to add the top connector.
Okay.
So we're going to grab the 2 shorter pieces of faux leather strap.
Okay.
And our O-rings. And if you want to do one, I'll do the other.
Okay.
And we're just going to thread the O-ring through the top of the strap and fold it down so it's about 1 inch or 1.5 inches from the folded edge to the raw edge.
Okay.
You can just clip it together. And for this part, I am going to add some double-sided basting tape because it is quite long. So I'm just going to place a piece down the center.
Okay.
And not all the way because it will go into our buckle here. So about halfway is enough to hold it. You can just trim that.
You bet. And then do the same thing on this other one?
Yes.
Okay. And we are overlapping that part that we folded, right?
Yes.
Okay. So like about there is good?
Perfect.
Okay. All right, there we go.
And I love this thin 1/8 inch wide double-sided basting tape.
Oops. There we go.
Okay, so then we'll have one strap on each side panel, and we'll want to center it and have that top folded edge about 1.5 inches down from the top raw edge of the panel.
Okay. Just gonna come down here so we're close.
As long as they match and the bottom edges should line up, so that's a good indication. So then you can just press down in the middle. And that tape holds it really well.
Yeah, it's amazing for being so thin how well it works.
So I'm going to sew this down. I'm going to start about 3/4 inch from that top folded edge. Just be careful of your hardware. So if you need to adjust that, you certainly can. So I have my presser foot aligned where I'm going to start. And you'll want to refer to the pattern for how far down to sew. You can certainly mark a line across so you know where to stop. I'm just going to sew, and I've already went ahead and marked it.
Okay.
And you might have noticed I originally used matching thread, which is really beginner friendly too. So if you happen to go a little crooked, then it hides that.
A little more forgiving.
Yes. And it's kind of fun to use the contrasting thread.
I was going to say, I really like it.
Yeah. And then I'll repeat to attach the other side.
Okay.
So now we're going to punch a hole in our strap for the pin to go through. So I love using a rotary punch.
Okay.
And this has the dial that you can turn to the different sizes. And you'll want about 1/8 inch diameter, just enough for your hardware to poke through.
Okay.
And you want to make a note of where the pin will poke through the fabric. Once it lays flat, it actually goes through the center of the pin.
Okay.
So you'll want, I usually just center
And like eyeball.
an eyeball right over the middle of the hardware.
Okay.
And then you just squeeze.
There you go.
And you'll come from underneath that roller bar and poke your pin through.
Look at that.
And then thread it through that strap.
Beautiful.
And then repeat for the other side.
I love it so much.
I love it too. I think it adds a lot to the bag just to have that extra detail.
Definitely.
So the next step is to add a little bit of shape to the side panels.
Okay.
So we're going to measure in from each top corner 1/2 inch and do a mark along the top edge.
All right. Does it matter? Is this marking tool fine?
Perfect.
Okay.
Something that we'll be able to see.
All right. Let me move some of this out of the way for now. And so on both sides at the top, right?
Yes.
1/2 inch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's one. And two.
Perfect. And then you're going to draw a diagonal line from this mark to the bottom corner.
Okay.
And then the same for the opposite side and the other panel.
So just all the way down that full length.
Yep.
My ruler is just the right length. It's pretty magic. All right. There's that first one.
Okay, so while you mark the other one, I'm gonna sew 1/4 inch in from each of those diagonal lines to attach my fabric to the foam.
Perfect. And I'll work on this one.
Okay, so now you're going to cut along that marked line.
I can do that. Okay.
And the same for that one.
Perfect.
So we have our side panels prepped, and we can set those aside.
Okay.
And then there's one last piece to the exterior to prepare, and that is the base of the bag.
All right.
So here I have our base pieces, and included in the pattern is a template, and you place the template in the corner and trace the outer edge.
Just to give you that curve.
To give you that curve, and then you do that to the heavy stabilizer piece, your lining piece, and your foam piece in all 4 corners. You mark the corner curve, and then you cut along the marked line.
Okay.
So I'm going to set this piece aside. So I've already went ahead and cut the corners for the contrast fabric.
Okay.
And against the wrong side, you'll take your heavy stabilizer piece and center it. And it's intentionally smaller, so that way it's not within the seam allowance later on.
Reduce that bulk.
Yes, and then you just top stitch an 1/8 inch inside that heavy stabilizer. And you can use basting spray to hold the heavy stabilizer down as you sew, or if your clips reach, you can use the clips.
Okay.
And another optional piece of hardware that we can add are purse feet. So we went ahead and marked the placement for the purse feet. So you just measure in from each of the short edges and mark a line all the way across, and from each of the long edges, and then at the intersecting marks, then you punch a hole. And I usually use the smallest hole on the rotary punch because you want a nice tight fit for your purse feet.
Perfect. So that's all ready to go.
So here's one purse foot.
Okay.
And you'll poke the prongs through from the right side to the wrong side.
Okay.
And then place the washer over the prongs.
And then fold these back.
Mm-hmm.
If I can get them to separate. It's the downside of having nails. They don't always help.
And if you push both prongs one direction, they'll actually separate a little bit easier.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Then you can kind of get that other one. I see that.
Yeah.
Good tip. There we go. Just like so.
Perfect. And then again, you can add some glue or interfacing, and it looks super professional.
It's such a great detail. All of these little things make a big difference in the overall finish of the bag, I think. All right, we'll just quickly add the last of these.
And it's so easy to do, too. It just
is.
takes a couple more steps.
Yeah, I think it's scary when you see all of those components, but once you get started, it's really not difficult at all.
And a lot of hardware is installed the same way, too. Either with the prongs or sewed in.
Yep. And so once you figure out how to do it, you're good to go for all those different bags. And the last one. Okay, all done.
Perfect. So then we're going to take the foam stabilizer to add a little bit more stability. We really want that strong, stable base. And the heavy stabilizer is kind of bumpy, so it kind of helps grip the foam. Otherwise, you can use your basting spray, and I'm going to sew the 2 layers together.
Okay.
And you can sew from either side. Since I just have a standard foot on my machine, I'm just going to sew from the foam side so it sews a little bit more smooth.
Sounds good.
And this is just an 1/8 inch basting stitch all the way around.
Just to hold all the layers.
So we can add these pieces to our pile of pieces that are prepped.
Yep.
And now we're going to work on the interior padded pocket.
Okay.
So let's get started on the interior.
All right.
We're going to take it step by step. First, we're going to work on the slip pocket that will be attached to our padded pocket.
Okay.
So we're just going to fold this piece in half. And I'm going to sew along the raw edges. So then, very similar to before,
okay,
you're going to press the seam open and turn the pocket right side out.
Alrighty. This little bit doesn't want to fold over. There we go. Okay. All right, and are we centering this up again?
So this time we'll just position it up from the bottom edge a little bit.
Okay.
And this will become the wrong side of the pocket. And then just press it. Then it has that crisp top and bottom edge.
All right, how about that?
Perfect. So the side with that seam will end up being the bottom.
Okay.
So I'm going to flip it over to the right side, and I'm going to top stitch from that top folded edge.
Okay.
And this is the lower half of our lining for the pocket, and we've already marked the placement, so I'm just going to position it below that placement line. So you'll refer to the pattern to mark that horizontal placement line, and you'll line up the side edges and make sure the bottom is even. And we can just add a couple clips to hold the side edges together.
There we go.
And I'm going to sew the sides and the bottom edges just with an 1/8 inch seam allowance.
All right.
So one extra step, if you want, you can stitch either a single line up the center, or maybe you want a line over here for a smaller section of the pocket if you plan to put pens in here, or large enough for your cell phone. So I'm going to stitch a dividing line up the center.
Okay, great. And you can kind of just customize that however you want, right? Okay.
So if you do want to mark that center.
Sure. Okay.
And that'll be an easy visual just to follow along that line.
Right on that line.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you'll definitely want to back stitch. And sometimes I even pivot and sew back down just for a second line for reinforcement. But I'm just going to back stitch really well at the top here, a couple times. So here's what the lower half of our pocket looks like, and I'm gonna set this aside. So now we're gonna make the zipper pocket for a padded pocket. And we have these little fabric tabs to finish off the raw ends of our zipper. So this is a Sallie tomato zipper, and it has a nylon coil so we can cut and sew directly through the coil.
This is one of my favorite products that you make because it looks like a heavy duty metal zipper, but it's so versatile and you can sew and cut right over it. Really amazing.
And I love that you can cut the exact length that you need. So you buy a whole roll and then you just put a zipper pull on. And then cut the length that you need. So it's
perfect.
Perfect, yes. So then we're going to position the tabs on each raw end, and you're going to line up those short edges and the side edges. So that way the right side of the fabric is against the wrong side of the zipper.
Okay.
And then another one, right sides together. I'm going to clip these so they don't shift. It's going to clip this side so it stays out of the way. I'm just going to sew this with 3/8 inch seam allowance.
All right.
And then I'm going to fold these tabs away and just top stitch a 1/4 inch from the seam.
Great.
And then we'll repeat for the other side. It wasn't so bad,
nope,
right?
Not bad at all.
So now our zipper is prepped, and we're going to attach it to the top panel of our pocket.
Okay.
So there's 2 pieces, one for the front and one for the inside. And you'll want to position your zipper so that way it opens according to which hand is your dominant hand. Okay. So if you are right-handed, you'll want the zipper to open towards the right. And then if you're left-handed, you'll just want to flip it around and have it open to the left.
Okay, and I'm right-handed.
Right-handed, so we'll position it this way. And usually I keep the zipper away from the edges too. It just makes it a little bit easier to install.
Sure.
And so this will be the top panel, and our zipper's positioned correctly. So we're going to line up these 2 matched edges, right sides together.
Okay.
And if it's easier to see, you can flip it over to sew it. And we're going to sew with a 1/4 inch to baste it down. So if you want to baste it, you can. I'm just going to grab the other piece right away.
Okay. And
place it right sides together with your other lining fabric, and make sure that those tabs are even with the side edges. And I'm going to clip all 3 layers together at once and just skip that basting. But if you want to baste to make sure nothing shifts, then go for it.
You totally can.
So I have this narrow foot attached to the machine, so it'll be just fine to sew next to the zipper, but you could certainly attach a very narrow foot or a zipper foot for this set. I'm going to sew with 3/8 inch seam allowance.
Okay.
And you want to make sure that you know where your zipper pull is, so you can just slide it out of the way as you get to it. And I stopped with the needle down, and I'm going to slide it out of the way again and just lift it up my presser foot. Make sure those edges stay even, and then you can just continue sewing. So now you can press away the fabrics so they're wrong sides together.
Okay.
And you can zip that zipper closed if it helps at all.
Makes it a little easier, yeah, out of the way. Just make sure it's not flipped up there in the back too. There we go.
Perfect. Yeah, taking the time to press just really makes it look finished.
Yes, it does.
And crisp. So now we're going to top stitch 1/4 inch from that seam that we had just sewn. And then I'm going to grab our 2 lower panels, and we're going to repeat the same process that we did before, but this time we're going to attach to the raw edge of the zipper.
Okay.
And we want to make sure that our slip pocket is against or facing up, just like our zipper. So we're going to make sure that these are right sides together.
Okay. And then this is going to come around.
Yes, and this will be the interior of the pocket.
There we go.
So then we can either pin or clip these together. So with the 3/8 inch seam, and then press and top stitch.
Okay, great.
So here's how it should look all done.
Beautiful.
So we just folded these so they were wrong sides together. Here's what it looks like on the top, and then the interior all finished off.
Beautiful.
Now we need to finish off all these raw edges. So here we have another interior piece because we need an inside to our pocket, our zipper pocket.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have our fabric right side up and our pocket right side up. Line up all those edges. And I'm going to baste all the way around. There are a lot of layers here.
Okay.
So you can use pins or clips to hold the layers together.
I've got one little clip over here I can help with.
Perfect, thanks.
You're welcome.
I'm just going to add a couple anyway.
Even a few makes a big difference from shifting. So.
Yes. And I'm going to start along the top edge here just to keep those top edges even.
Okay.
So now when you open your zipper, there's the lining inside. Then we're going to take another lining piece
Okay.
and layer it right sides together with the front and align all the edges. And this time we're going to sew just the sides and the top and leave the bottom open so we can turn it right side out through the
Okay.
bottom. So now we can turn this right side out. And I like to use a turning tool to help poke out the corners and to smooth the seams. So this is the Sallie Tomato Essential turning and creasing tool. So we're going to use the curved side and just run it along the side edge.
Okay.
So that way we have that nice smooth corner. So I just bring it inside and then just run it along each side of the seam.
Works really nicely.
And the other side of this tool is a stiletto too, so you can always
Yeah.
use this to help guide
Absolutely.
as you sew. So we can give that a good press,
Okay.
and you can use your fingers to just roll the seam to make sure it's right along the edge.
Okay. And then same thing on the sides?
Yes.
Okay. All right, there we go.
Perfect. So now we're going to add a piece of foam in between the layers for that stability.
Okay.
So just slide it right in so it's tight against that top edge. And then I'm going to top stitch a 1/4 inch from the top edge, and that'll help hold that foam in place.
Awesome.
Next, we're going to take one of our lining panels, and the pocket is going to get centered along the bottom edge. And then I'm just going to sew with an 1/8 inch seam allowance on the sides and the bottom. Make sure to leave that top open for the laptop.
Yep.
And you could certainly add some pins in the side edges here to hold it in place. These pockets are going to be so useful inside this bag.
Yep, absolutely.
So we're done with one half of the lining,
Okay.
and then we have to install one more zipper pocket on the opposite half.
All right.
All right, so now we're ready to make the interior zipper pocket. So we'll start by pressing the bottom edge of each of our zipper pocket lining pieces a 1/2 inch to the wrong side. So you're just going to fold it up about a 1/2 inch for both pieces along the bottom.
I can do that. Move my scissors out of the way.
Have you gotten pretty good at eyeballing measurements?
I have, yeah. I feel like you do it enough times and then all of a sudden, you know, you don't have to worry about it too much anymore. Well, and I have figured out too that if you get it close, it's usually good enough. You know?
Yeah. I'm the same way.
Yeah, early on you worry about all those little things, but you don't have to.
Yeah. It'll all turn out in the end.
Yep.
Looks good. So then we're going to measure and mark a placement box for our zipper. So we've already went ahead and done that. We measured in from each side edge and marked a line, and then down from the top edge and marked 2 lines. So we're going to start with this piece that's already marked. We're going to take one of our lining panels. So this is the one without the pocket attached.
Okay.
And you're going to place your marked pocket against the lining, right sides together, and center the pocket along the placement line. So you're going to measure down, mark a placement line across, and you can either take your ruler and find the center or fold each piece in half and match up the centers. Again, I'm just going to get about equal distance on both sides and sew along the placement box.
Okay.
And whenever I sew along a placement box for a zipper, I decrease the stitch length to 2 millimeters.
Okay.
And that'll just help have a nice clean edge when we turn this right side out for the zipper. So it'll help in the next step. And I usually like to start along one of the straight edges versus the corner again, just like before. And after a while, some of these things will just become habit.
Yep. The first time I saw this zipper method, I was so confused. I have to be honest, but now I get it. It makes sense.
Yes, yeah. The first time through, you'd be a little hesitant probably because it seems a little strange.
Yeah, but it works beautifully.
I'm just going to sew right over my back stitching from before, and back stitch again. Okay, so now we're going to cut a horizontal line through the middle of this placement box.
Okay.
And you want to start and stop about a 1/2 inch from each of the edges. So you can use your scissors or a rotary cutter and the ruler.
I'm going to go with the rotary cutter.
That's what I do too, nice and quick.
Just for time, yep. Okay, I think I got close enough there.
Yeah,
all right.
Looks good. And then take a scissors and cut a diagonal cut up to each corner, Just careful not to cut through the stitches.
Yep, just right up to that. All right, there we go.
Okay. And then we're going to push this fabric through our opening and press the fabric's wrong sides together. But what I like to do is kind of press it first along each of the edges to get it started.
Great tip, yeah.
And then we'll fold it through. So
okay.
I'll let you
press
do the
it
pressing.
Through. All right.
And I usually end up pressing it from the right side and the wrong side just to make sure everything stays where it's supposed to.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, you can see why the first time you do this, it feels a little funny, but it gives you such a beautiful finish. So we'll do this top edge. Same thing, just kind of roll it under your fingers. And then once you do those two long sides, the ends kind of just behave on their own. At least that's what I found. There we go.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I got there eventually, right?
Awesome. So next we're going to take our 10-inch zipper, and again, you'll want to position it so it opens towards your dominant hand. And then we're going to take some basting tape and apply a small little piece just along the very raw edge of the top and bottom of the zipper.
You want it all the way across or just, okay.
Sure.
Just wasn't sure. We've got this skinny little tape, so I'll get it started.
So we have the zipper right side up, our fabric right side up. The edges of the pocket lining should be even with the raw edges of the zipper. And then you're just going to center it in that placement box. And what's great about the tape is you can just readjust it if needed.
Exactly.
There.
There we go.
All right, so then I'm gonna sew around the placement box all the way around, just with an 1/8 inch seam allowance.
Okay.
And if you need to move the zipper out of the way, you certainly can. And just make sure that that pocket lining stays down out of the way. You wouldn't want it to flip up.
You'd be sad.
So you can certainly leave your pocket as is like this and then continue on with the pattern to add the opposite lining piece. However, you can take it a step further and we're going to add on this extra little accent.
Oh, I love that.
And it also helps hide that seam a little bit from before too. So we are going to add a little bit more tape just along the center of the long edges.
Okay.
And then peel that paper off and center it over the zipper. So the opening of this box is a little bit smaller, just to help cover that up. So just try to center it the best you can.
It just gives such a beautiful finished look.
And I love how it ties in the straps and the outside of the bag too. So now we're going to sew from this inner box along all 4 edges with an 1/8 inch seam allowance. And then I'm also going to sew just above this lower curve here.
Okay.
And sew an 1/8 inch across the bottom and stop just before that upper curved edge.
Okay.
And around the curves, you can just lift up the presser foot and pivot around the curves. Usually I just go one stitch at a time.
It's another place where taking your time pays off.
Yes. And we can trim those little thread tails.
Of course. Oops. There we go.
All right, so then we're gonna flip this over and we're gonna match the lining fabric's right sides together. And you'll want the sides and top and bottom even. And I'm gonna grab only the layers of the pocket lining.
Okay.
And we're gonna first sew along this top edge. So it's actually a little bit easier to flip it and then just fold away that front. And you wanna make sure that those side edges are even.
Awesome.
And I'm so used to lining it as I sew, but again, you could certainly pin it. So then I'm gonna flip up that top edge, just make sure that your pocket is flat and aligned. And then I'm gonna continue sewing that accent down.
Okay.
Then to finish off the pocket, we're just going to fold away one of the side edges to start and just sew that side seam of just the pocket linings together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and make sure that those bottom edges stay folded.
All right.
And to sew the other side, you're going to start at the bottom edge this time. And I was a little crooked, but that's okay. It's just the lining.
Right? You can catch that in the seam.
Yes. And we're going to leave the bottom edge unsewn. This is going to be our turning opening for later on.
Oh, okay.
Just make sure that you unzip your zipper after your side edges are complete.
Okay.
And now we're ready to move on to prepare the top zipper.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so here we have the zipper for the top closure of our bag.
Okay.
And first you want to decide if you want to add a piece of hardware to the end.
Okay.
To finish off the end. Otherwise, you can follow along with the pattern to add a fabric tab. The hardware is super easy. So all you have to do to install the hardware, it's called a zipper cord end, because you could either use it for the end of zippers or the end of drawstring cords.
Okay.
And you just fold the end of the tape in thirds about. You can just tuck everything in. I usually add a little bit of glue to the inside first.
Just to really hold it together.
And then on the back side, there is a small screw that comes with the hardware. So you just kind of get it started and screw it in place.
Perfect. That's a really nice little touch.
and it's all finished off.
I love that.
So then on the open end of the zipper, you can separate each half of the tape, and you're going to fold each of the ends of the zipper tape at a 90-degree angle, and you're going to sew just about 1/8 of an inch and backstitch a couple of times to tack it in place, and you'll do the same on the other side. So here's what it looks like all sewn.
Just holding it back like that. Okay.
And our zipper is ready to install. So we can set this completed one aside, and we're ready to assemble the bag.
Oh my goodness, let's do it.
So we are going to start with the front panel and both of our side panels.
Okay.
And we're just going to place the side panel right sides together with the front and line up the side edges, and that angled edge will be even with the side. And here's some clips.
Perfect.
And I'll clip the other side right away too. You can certainly just do one at a time. So you want to make sure that the O-rings are towards the top. So the top is the end that has the open part of the slip pocket too.
Okay.
I'm going to sew the sides together with 3/8 inch seam allowance. So this will cover up any of the basting stitches that we did before. I'll turn it around and do the other side. Okay, so then we can grab the back panel.
Okay, that's this one.
And we're going to just repeat to attach the remaining raw edges together.
All right.
So just line up the side panels with the back panel.
Do you do one side at a time, or should I go ahead and pin both?
We can go ahead and do both.
All right. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now we're going to fold the bag and match the side seams to find the side center.
Okay.
And really it's where the middle of our strap connector is.
Okay.
So that's already marked. And then we'll match the seams in the opposite direction to find the bottom edge center.
Okay.
So if we want to mark the center point.
Okay, where did I put our little marking pen? There we go. So we just match these here and then make a mark. Oops, if I can get a hold of it. Out here
Yep.
on both sides.
Yes, the
Okay.
front and the back.
There we go.
All right. And then if we want to grab our contrast base piece.
Yep.
So this one, I would recommend to use your ruler and measure to mark
Okay.
the center on the front, the back, and also the sides. So
Okay.
now we can match up our center points.
Okay.
And just triple check that you're attaching the base to the bottom of the bag.
Okay.
So we can start by matching up those centers and just clip the centers first. also on the side edges. And then I just clip the straight edges and then clip the curves last.
Okay.
So that way those will ease into place.
I am cursed. What is happening?
Oh no. They've been well used.
Mm-hmm.
And here's where we probably want to use a lot of clips. Make sure nothing shifts.
Hold everything together. So there you can see all of the clips that we've put on just to ease all of that in.
Mm-hmm.
Hold everything straight.
And I find it's easier to sew with the base against the bed of the sewing machine.
Okay, that's good to know.
Because our fabric is now curved around the corners, so it behaves a little bit better when it's upright like this.
That makes
sense. So you can
sense.
just fold it out of the way, and then we're going to sew all the way around the base to attach it. And once you get to the seams, I just recommend to finger press them open.
Okay.
And here's where the stiletto comes in handy to help hold it all in place. All right, so then we can turn this right side out.
Okay.
And now's a good time to make sure that you cut all the edges.
Yeah.
So if you have any holes, go back and fix those.
Oh, it's looking so nice though. Look at that.
That's so pretty.
It's so
I love
pretty.
it. Great, so then we're going to assemble the linings. We can grab both of our lining panels.
Okay. There's those.
Okay. So make sure your top edges are at the top and then place them right sides together. And this time we're going to start with 3/8 inch seam allowance, and then we're going to gradually increase to 5/8, just about an inch or two down.
Okay.
And then sew 5/8 inch seam all the way down to the bottom.
Okay.
So that way our lining is a little smaller towards the inside, and it'll be less bulky.
Sounds good.
So I'll flip it over and sew the opposite side together. Okay, then we're going to trim the seam allowance to 1/4 inch wide, either with the scissors or
Okay.
approximately with the rotary cutter.
Just to get that bulk out of the way.
Yeah.
All right.
So I've already went ahead and marked the center point on the front, back, and sides of our lining base piece.
Okay.
And then to find the bottom edge centers, you can just match those side seams and mark again too.
Perfect.
So just like how we did before, we'll start by matching up those center points. It's a little thicker on this side, so I'm just going to grab a clip.
Perfect.
And then match the sides. So here's how it'll look. And then we can sew all the way around the base again to attach those two pieces together.
Okay.
So this time, because of the foam, instead of having it up like this, I'm just gonna have it down and sew around this way.
Okay. Yeah, that foam kind of dictates which way it wants to go, doesn't
Exactly.
it? Yeah.
Just gonna catch this corner here a little bit better. Okay, then we can trim that seam allowance on the corners
Okay.
to just help reduce some of the bulk.
Just to narrow it up a bit, or
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, to about 1/4 of an inch.
Okay. Oops.
Yeah, that one I got really crooked.
That's okay. It's the lining. No one will ever know. And so you're only trimming the corners, though, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Oops, missed a little bit. There we go.
Perfect.
All right.
So then we can turn the lining right side out and just double check we caught all the edges again.
Okay.
Okay.
Looks good.
And then just double check that that zipper pocket is unzipped for turning.
Okay.
And now we're ready to attach our zipper. So let's set
Okay.
aside the lining and we'll grab the exterior.
Okay.
And I'm gonna mark the top edge for the placement of the zipper closure.
All right.
So I'm gonna start by matching up those side seams and mark the center along the top edge of each of the side panels. And then when you have the bag against you, you'll want to decide which direction you want the zipper to open.
Okay.
So I think we'll want the open end over here.
Yep.
And I'm going to measure 1/4 of an inch from each side of that center. And this is where the open end will be. On the closed end, I'm going to mark 1/2 inch away and then also 1 inch away from the 1/2 inch marks.
Okay.
So when we attach the zipper, we're going to start tapering the zipper out of the seam allowance. And then once we hit this 1/4 inch mark, we'll want to make sure that it's completely out of the seam allowance at that point.
Okay.
And this will be for the closed end. So we're going to start with the open end.
And here's our zipper.
Okay, so it's, all right, so if we want to position our zipper right sides together, I'm just going to flip it and start with 1/2 of the zipper tape. And I'm going to unzip it. It's going to be a little bit easier to install. And then we'll want the very raw end of the tape, even with that 1/4 inch mark.
Okay.
And then that top raw edge of the zipper will be even with the raw edge of the top of the bag. And I'm going to add a pin just to make sure it stays in place. So then you can continue to add clips or pins to attach that raw edge of the zipper all the way across.
Okay.
And you can clip up until that 1 inch mark. It's perfect.
All right.
So I think it's going to be a little bit easier with the extension table removed. So
Yes.
we went ahead and took that off to do the top stitching. And if you have a free arm on your machine, it's really nice to just fit the entire bag right over that free arm to do this step. So we're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. and backstitch over that zipper at the beginning. And then continue sewing across the top. And we're going to keep the raw edges even up until that 1-inch mark. I'm just going to add a pin just to help me recognize where that mark is. Okay, and then just take the pin out of the fabric and then taper the zipper away from the seam allowance. And backstitch. So it should be completely out of the seam allowance by that 1/2-inch mark.
Okay.
And then we're going to align the opposite half of the zipper, just like before. So I'm going to start with the open end. And I don't want this to move at all, so I am going to use pins all the way across.
Okay.
And pin the tapered end in place too, because this time we're going to start at the tapered end. It's a little bit easier.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just to sew from this direction instead. Oops, I bent your pin.
It's fine.
Okay. And now is a good time to test the zipper to make sure that it closes evenly.
Okay.
And if it doesn't, if one side seems shifted, then you might have to seam rip and then adjust.
Correct it. Okay.
Okay.
It looks good though.
Yeah, it looks good. So then we're gonna unzip it and turn the exterior wrong side out. And then we're going to take the lining and insert it into the exterior.
Okay.
So the right sides of the fabric are together.
Okay.
And then also the padded pocket should be against the side with the luggage strap.
Okay. There we go.
Okay. And then we'll line up our center marks along the top edge.
All right. There we go. All clipped together.
All right, so then just sew around the top edge all the way around.
Okay. This is so exciting.
And just make sure as you sew around to remember that your O-rings are at the top on the sides,
Okay.
and then also your zipper pull and that cord end if you decide to use that. So I'm going to stop because I feel that O-ring. I'm just going to make sure that it's pushed down. Okay.
Good call out.
Yes.
I don't want to break any needles today.
No. Misty, we're ready to turn it right side out.
Oh my goodness.
So I like to pull the lining through first, and then I reach in and grab that base. That's the thickest part.
You just have to kind of take your time and make it work.
Yes. And before the lining goes down into the exterior, I'm going to grab that unsewn edge of the zipper pocket and just sew across with an 1/8 inch seam allowance to close that up.
All right.
Just move that all out of the way. This is way better than hand sewing.
Oh my goodness, absolutely.
Go back into the zipper pocket. And then just work to push the lining inside.
Look at that.
Just gonna get rid of these. So we're nearly there. We just have to top stitch along the top edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around.
Okay, oh my goodness, I love it.
And to do the top stitching, I usually start on the back or the side panel, just the way our back stitches aren't shown on the front. So just as you go, make sure the lining is down inside, and you could press it before you top stitch if you wanted to.
All right, look at that. Now our zipper can close. It looks so great.
Awesome. So then the last step is to attach the strap.
All right, let's do it.
So it's pretty simple from here. All you have to do is measure from each end of the strap and mark the placement for all the holes. And then you use your rotary punch to punch each of the holes. And now we're ready to thread it through the bag. So I usually like to have that finished folded edge towards the front.
Okay.
And then if you want to thread through that O-ring.
Go through the buckle as well.
Yep, and then down to the buckle.
So I'm so excited about the Misty bag. Jess, thank you so much for all of your help designing and putting this together. I could not have done this without you, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. It was my pleasure. It was so much fun to design, and it was a fun challenge for me to make it easy for everybody else.
Absolutely. And so let's just recap some of the great features. As you can see, you can wear it as a backpack like I have right now. You can also wear it as a shoulder bag. And then Jess, you want to go through some of the pockets?
Yeah, and so then you can slide it right over your luggage handle.
Yep.
On the back, you have that nice magnetic closure slip pocket on the front. It zips open nice and wide so you have access to your laptop or tablet. All sorts of pockets for organizing while you're traveling and on the go. So I loved sharing, and I hope you enjoyed learning the process of making all the different types of pockets, using the different hardware and all the techniques.
Yeah, definitely. You have some new bag making skills. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Hey everyone, it's Misty. Thanks for watching at home. If you aren't already a part of our Missouri Star family, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell if you want a notification every time we release a new video. I'll see you next Monday on the newest episode of At Home.